This is the Troll Patrol, live with Justin Freakin.
Welcome to the Troll Patrol, live. And after last night's exciting debate with old Gord, tonight we're in for a much less exciting experience, as we are going to be watching, possibly, the two presidential candidates have competing town halls. This is what I've come up with. I've got the two on the screen. We'll see what's going on. On the right is President Trump. On the left is Joe Biden on ABC. Now, what's hilarious about Trump being on NBC is last night he bashed the fuck out of NBC, which ironically is the network that set all this in motion, that gave him the show The Apprentice, which is the entire reason we're having to put up with him right now. So Trump's got Savannah Guthrie. I believe, does Joe Biden have George Stephanopoulos over here? Is that who we got?
Nicholas Fedden, he's from Jenkintown, Pennsylvania. That's close to here in Philadelphia.
No, well.
You're a Democrat.
I am a Democrat. Thank you, George.
It would be just like the debate, wouldn't it?
Every day,
it's a good joke.
and I are in disbelief at the lack of coordinated federal action on COVID-19. We know that your administration would follow the science. My question for you is two parts.
Biden's already taking questions, and they're still in the intro for Trump.
Became aware of COVID-19. What would following the science have meant in terms of actual policy? And then, looking forward,
Smoke him if you got him.
what would your administration do in terms of following the science with real concrete policies that haven't been done by the current administration?
Well, first of all, going back, the fact is that the president was.
I'm definitely not high enough for this shit yet.
The virus was, and all the way back in the beginning of February, I argued that we should be keeping people in China, and we had set up in our administration a pandemic office within the White House. There were 44 people on the ground. I suggested we should be seeking, and I didn't hold public office. I was a former vice president. I suggested we, in fact,
honestly, I think Trump has the cooler setup over there.
The problem. And the best of our knowledge, Trump never pushed that. All those 44 people came home, never got replaced. And
now, I hate to give Trump the ratings, because that's the thing he's really wanting. I hope.
You're here. We're glad you're well. We send our best to the First Lady and to Barron.
Thank you.
Do you have any remaining symptoms from COVID?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be sitting across from him.
I was in North Carolina today and did a big rally. We had a tremendous turnout, and just feel really good. Florida, Pennsylvania, we're all over the place. It's been great.
You received some treatments that are generally reserved for those with the most severe form of the disease.
Uh-oh.
How severe were your symptoms?
Oh, I can't pull out the Smoky because we're on the wrong monitor.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. I didn't feel good. I didn't feel strong. I had a little bit of a temperature. The doctors at the White House are fantastic, as you can imagine, and they really didn't want to take a chance. And they said, "Let's go to the hospital." I said, "That's okay. I'm going to, respond to what you say."
Don't worry about it.
There you go. There's the debate, Phil.
Tremendous professionals. They gave me Regeneron and Remdesivir both, and all I know is I felt good the following day. I felt really good.
Did the doctors ever tell you that they saw pneumonia on your lung scans?
No, but they said the lungs are, a little bit different, a little bit perhaps infected, and
Infected.
The best lungs.
I don't know. I mean, I didn't do too much asking. I really felt good. I didn't have much of a problem with the lungs. I did have a little bit of a temperature. Obviously, I felt there was something missing, and then I tested. I tested positive.
Well, let's talk about testing, because there's a little bit of confusion about this, and I think we can clear it up.
And there shouldn't.
Your first positive test was Thursday, October 1st.
No, it wasn't.
When was your last negative test? When did you last remember having a negative test?
Well, I test quite a bit, and I can tell you that before the debate, which I thought it was a very good debate, and I felt fantastically. I had no problem before.
Did you test the day of the debate?
I don't know. I don't even remember. I test all the time.
He did not.
I can tell you this.
They told the debate commission that they got there too late for them to do the
It
test.
was Thursday evening, maybe even late Thursday evening. I tested positive. That's when I first found out about it.
He knew Thursday afternoon that he was positive.
Rules. It was the honor system. Would be that you would come with a negative test. You say you don't know if you got a test on the day of the
I
debate?
have no problem. Again, the doctors do it. I don't ask them. I test all the time, and they
Did you take a test, though?
I think you'd know if somebody stuck a fucking Q-tip up your
take a
nose.
test, and I leave, and I go about
So
my business.
did you take a test on the day of the debate, I guess, is the bottom line.
Probably did, and I took a test the day before and the day before, and I was always in great shape, and I was in great shape for the debate, and it was only after the debate, like a period of time after the debate, that I said, that's interesting, and they took a test. And
Notice Biden's over there. He's giving a substantive answer to a substantive
And you
question.
don't know if you took a test the day of the debate.
Over here on the right, it's just all flash and bullshit.
Doctors, very accurate information, and it's not only that doctor, it's many doctors. The one thing, if you're president, you have a lot of doctors you're surrounded by. But I was in great shape for the debate, and sometime after the debate, I tested positive.
Let's talk about...
That's when they decided to let's go.
Okay, good.
Sometime after the debate.
Some clarity for folks. Let's talk about the event that was held at the White House on the Saturday before you tested positive. Subsequent to that, 13 people connected to that event tested positive. There was an outdoor reception. You've seen the pictures. There was an indoor reception. People were not wearing masks. My question to you is, at this point in the pandemic, knowing what we know, shouldn't you have known better? Shouldn't the White House know better than to hold an event like that?
Well, they do a lot of testing in the White House. They test everybody, including me, but they test everybody. And something happened, but as far as the mask is
Something happened.
with masks, I'm okay with masks.
No, they test all the time. They were using those rapid return tests.
85% of the people that wear masks.
Those aren't very reliable.
So,
They didn't say that. I know that's...
They're bad about false positives and false negatives.
And regardless, but everybody's tested, and they're tested often. And I also knew that, hey, I'm president. I have to see people. I can't be in a basement. I can't be in a room. I have to be out.
You can do plenty of things in a basement.
I can, but
I never leave my basement. I'm sorry, I never leave my parents' basement.
he was known for a mask. If you look at Tom Tillis, a great guy, he always had a mask, and they caught it.
Well, there are pictures of Tom Tillis actually with one of Judge Barrett's kids not wearing a mask. But, Chris Christie, he was part of your debate prep.
Yeah.
He was...
I'm sure he doesn't want to be poked with that
He came out
thing.
tonight. He was sick, very sick. He was in the hospital for about a week.
I know
He
that.
came out tonight and said, I was wrong not to wear a mask.
Well, I mean, he has to say that. I think it's great. He's a friend of mine.
He has to say that.
And wrong or not wrong. You have to understand, as president, I can't be locked in a room someplace for the next year and just stay and do nothing. And every time I go into a crowd,
God, how nice that would be.
the parents of our fallen heroes, these people are the most incredible people. And they came up to me, and they would hug me, and they would touch me. And
he accused them
to not let them do it.
Now,
To
there
be
of giving him
was
COVID.
The Gold Star
It was
families
exactly
the day
right.
after the Supreme
a
Court
Gold
event.
Star event with the most incredible people you've ever seen, and I could have chosen not to talk to him.
Joe Biden is still on the same question over there.
And I don't think that's probably where it was caught, but maybe it
Well, I
was.
was going to say, you bring it up. You brought it up yourself. I mean, are you trying to suggest that? Do you believe in
what he said.
Your family gave you COVID?
No, I don't know where it came from,
Okay.
and you don't know where it came
Absolutely.
from. Doctors don't know where it came from, but as the president, I have to be out there. I also know.
There's no one that says you can't be out there, but it's just about wearing masks and having, for example, your
But I know
rallies.
this.
Your rallies
As
don't
an
require
example-
masks.
Oh, no. I mean, let's see Kamala. She's got people now. People have it, and I'm not blaming her. I'm not saying.
Yes, there are 3 people in Joe Biden's orbit that have tested positive.
Out there. I can't be in a basement. I can't be locked in a very beautiful room someplace in the White House. And I want to see the Gold Star families, and I want to see everybody. And I also.
Let's hope she does.
It's risky.
I kind of have a feeling they're going to handle him with kid gloves.
Right. You want to be a leader, but you also are a leader and a setter of an example. And if you're not wearing a mask when your administration is saying best practice right now is wear a mask, no, it's not foolproof.
But many
that
people
will,
are catching it. Many people are getting this disease that was sent to us by China, and it shouldn't have been allowed to happen. But many people are getting this, and I mean, nobody's being blamed. Everybody is working hard to get this thing out of our country.
He should still be quarantining, shouldn't he? It hasn't been 14 days.
They've done a very good job, but now you take a look.
Or it's exactly 14 days since he tested positive.
There's tremendous tremendous spikes.
But our death rate is worse than, well, not Spain, but those other countries.
I have things right here that will tell you exactly the opposite.
Me too.
So the UK is up 2,500%, because I knew you'd be doing this. I know you very well. The UK is up 2,500%. The EU is up 722%, and the United States is down 21%.
But we have, our deaths per capita is among the highest among industrially.
Excess mortality, we're a winner on the excess
What?
mortality. And what we've done has been amazing.
Jesus.
They're not there yet. And the most scientists say it's not likely to have a vaccine that would be available until the beginning of next year, into the spring of next year. And in the meantime, what I worry about is the same thing with regenerative.
Absolutely.
Which is a useful a useful tool. But what's happening is there is no plan to figure out how to distribute it. How many, we have 500,000, vials of it. Well, we don't have all the testing equipment. We don't have all the ability to get it to the people who need it. And what we should be doing now, and allegedly it's happening, but I've not seen it, nor the docs that I've talked to seen it, there should be a plan when we have the vaccine.
I want to be fair. I don't want to stay on Trump the whole time, but I mean, the dynamic with Savannah and Trump is probably far more interesting than what Stephanopoulos and Biden are going to do over here.
Vaccines, they say, have a very positive...
He probably will.
And they're going to affect positively 85% of the American public. Or there's others...
He already doesn't look happy. Did you see that face he was making? Holy shit.
It depends.
That was a scowl.
The nature of the vaccine, when it comes out, and how it's being distributed.
Let's go back to Blowhard over here.
It happened because of China, and you have to get that and understand that. But it shouldn't have happened. But we were expected to lose. If you look at the original charts from original doctors who are respected by everybody, 2,200,000
That 2 million figure, though, is if you literally did nothing. The 2 million figure is if you did absolutely nothing, it would be 2 million. The question is, should the deaths be better than 200,000 when...
Absolutely they should.
We have a worse death rate.
I left North Carolina, which I love.
She's doing a great job so far.
Case in Michigan because that governor has a lockdown where nobody but her husband can do anything. He can go voting and do whatever he wants, but nobody else can. The fact is we're winning all these cases because it's unconstitutional what they're doing, and I think they're doing it for political reasons. But the fact is the cure, you can't let this continue to go on with the lockdowns.
Well, most
and I believe that on November 4th, you're going to have a lot of these governors. Look at what's happening to New York. New York is a mess. They lost almost 40,000 people. They have a lockdown like you've never seen. Now they're open. It's like a ghost town.
Let's get to him.
And Savannah, it's very important. People are leaving New York by the thousands. And you're going to have a hard time ever building it up again. So that cure, that so-called cure that you talk about, it can't be worse than the problem. The problem is a bad problem.
We've got more questions on COVID, so let's drop it for now. We were supposed to, as mentioned, be watching you on a debate stage right now. We're not doing that, so let's clear up a few things from the last one. You were asked point blank to denounce white supremacy. In the moment, you didn't. You asked some follow-up questions. Who specifically? A couple of days later, on a different show, you denounced white supremacy. My question to you is...
She is going for blood.
I denounced white supremacy, okay?
You did 2 days later.
I denounced white supremacy for years, but you always do it. You always start off with a question. You didn't ask Joe Biden whether or not he denounces Antifa. I watched him on the same basic show with Lester Holt, and he was asking questions like Biden was a child. Are you listening? I denounce white supremacy. Okay. What's your next question?
Do you feel it feels sometimes?
Man, he's more adversarial than I was with old Gord last night.
In fact, my people came. I'm sure they'll ask you the white supremacy question. I denounce white supremacy. Okay. And frankly, you want to know something? I denounce Antifa, and I denounce these people on the left that are burning down our cities that are run by Democrats who don't know what they're doing.
While we're denouncing, let me ask you about QAnon.
He really is throwing everything at the wall.
Democrats are a satanic pedophile ring, and that you are the savior of that. Now, can you just once and for all state that that is completely not true
So,
and that
I know-
disavow QAnon in its entirety?
I know nothing about QAnon.
I just told
I
you.
know very little. You told me, but what you told me doesn't necessarily make it fact. I hate to say that. I know nothing about it. I do know they are very much against pedophilia. They fight it very hard, but I know nothing about it.
They believe it is
If
a
you'd like me
satanic cult
to
run by the deep
study the
state.
subject, I'll tell you what I do know about. I know about Antifa.
The guy that we're pretty sure is Q is most certainly a pedophile,
I know
so
how they're burning down cities run by Democrats, not run by
Republican
Republicans.
Senator Ben Sass said, quote, QAnon is nuts and real leaders call conspiracy theories.
oh guys, stick with me because I have that Ben Sass audio. After this is over with, we're gonna listen to that. It's amazing.
I don't know. No, I don't know. I don't know.
Let me
tell
ask you
all
another
about it.
thing.
Let's waste a whole show. You start off with white supremacy. I denounce it. You start off with something else. Let's go. Keep asking me these questions.
I do have one more in this vein.
Let me just tell you what I do hear about it is they are very
I mean, just look at the difference in the demeanor.
Your home, you can pay your mortgage. You got $20 million.
I am no fan of Joe Biden, but this is refreshing.
Raise the corporate tax, you're going to raise taxes on the wealthy. Is it wise to do even that when the economy is as weak as it is right now? Another
Absolutely.
900,000 people.
A boring ass, wonky conversation.
Did analysis of my detailed analysis of my tax plan and my economic plan. They said, I will in 4 years, Moody's, Wall Street, said I will create 18.6 million new jobs, good paying jobs, number one. Number two, and I'll increase, the GDP will grow by $1 trillion more than it would under Trump and 7 million more jobs than under Trump. And
If you're not aware, like
allow people to get back.
a lot of financial institutions are coming out and backing Biden
Everything moves.
and saying that yes, the Democrats and their clean sweep would be much better for the economy. Goldman Sachs said it this last
The
week.
wealthiest billionaires in the world, in the nation, they made another $700 billion. $700 billion. He talks about a V-shaped.
You're correct. The stance of the interviewers is much different, but the stance is a direct response to who they're interviewing.
And if you're at the bottom,
You know, it's like I said last night, it wasn't a debate with old Gord.
I should
Like you can't to have debated him would have said that
But all kidding aside,
he had something valid to say and bring to the discussion.
and George, the way out.
And much like Savannah is doing right now, you just have to confront them with their bullshit.
We have these 4 crises happening all at once, and one helps the other. For example, we're going to invest a great deal of that money into infrastructure and into a green infrastructure.
She looks kind of exacerbated, Savannah over here on the right, already.
Highways we're building, and all highways we're building. We're going to own the electric market. You know as well as I do from your days, in the old days, where the president spends about $600 billion a year on government contracts. Everything from making sure they have aircraft carriers to automobile fleets for in the United States. If you and it's not violation of any international trade agreement, made in America. If you actually insist.
I do kind of have an issue, though, with them picking George Stephanopoulos, who was in the Clinton administration,
It's estimated we're going to create somewhere between another 4 and 6
to do this town hall with
But
Biden.
what's happening now?
God, Trump is screaming over there.
A lot of this is going overseas. You get a benefit from going.
They spied on my campaign and they got caught, and they spied heavily on my campaign, and they tried to take down a duly elected sitting president, and then they talk about
None of that is true.
transfer. And the answer is yes, I will. But I want it to be an honest election, and so does everybody else. When I see thousands of ballots dumped in a garbage can and they happen to have my name on it, I'm not happy about that.
Okay, but just those are there is in fact no evidence of widespread fraud, and you were sowing doubt
Can
about
I
our
ask you,
democracy.
how
Our
can you say that?
democracy.
How can you say that? You do read newspapers.
I
You
do.
do watch the news.
Yeah.
I mean, we had the Republicans doing ballot harvesting in North Carolina. We have them setting up those fake boxes in California.
Millions that are being processed right now.
But you can win a race. Take a look at me. You can win a race by 1%.
But why are you laying the groundwork for that right now? It's like if I go play tennis with my husband and I say my ankle's hurting right now.
I don't want that to happen, Savannah. I want it to be clean. I really feel we're going to win. But I want this to be clean. But it's sort of ironic that you and them talk about the peaceful transfer when I spent 3.5 years.
According to Stormy, he doesn't wear a condom, so you've got to wonder, is he clean?
That they were the ones that dealt with Russia. And
he is absolutely going to say something insulting to her. You are correct.
But ideally, I don't want to transfer because I want to win.
Yes, and I think that your words will probably reassure some folks. Let's get to our first voter. We've got Jacqueline Lugo. Now, she is, I told you this audience is truly split between y'all. You are leaning Biden. She voted for Clinton in 2016. She's registered as an independent. Jacqueline, what's your question for the president? And you hold the mic up close and take off your mic because it's hard to hear out here.
Good evening.
How are you?
Welcome to Miami.
Thank you very much. It's beautiful.
Mr. President, if you knew COVID-19, as you told Bob Woodward in February.
As what?
As you told Bob Woodward in February, was airborne and deadlier than the flu, why did you only put in place a travel ban from China and not put in place other measures mitigating the spread of COVID-19, potentially saving tens of thousands of American lives?
Well, I did put it in very early, as you know. Joe Biden was 2 months behind me, and he called me xenophobic and racist and everything else because I put it in. And it turned out that I was 100% right. I also put it on Europe very early because I saw there was a lot of infection in Europe. And it's sort of an amazing question, and I appreciate the question and respect the question, but the news doesn't get out the right answer because I put on a travel ban far earlier than Dr. Fauci thought it was necessary, who I like, far earlier than the scientists. I was actually the only one that wanted to put it on, and I did it actually against the advice of a lot of people.
I would hope they're sanitizing the mics. I've seen other town halls where they had like garbage bags over the microphone.
I put it on in January, the end of January. When I put on the travel ban, Joe Biden and others said, this is ridiculous. You don't do that. Well, Dr. Fauci said I saved thousands and thousands of lives.
Did you?
I was early. I was extremely early when I put on the travel ban.
Can I ask you, did your national security advisor on January 28th in the Oval Office?
I think I kind of want to watch the John Lennon thing over on the left side, as opposed to this.
I read it someplace, maybe Woodward said it or something, but no, he did not say that. But I knew it was a big threat. At the same time, I don't want to panic this country. I don't want to go out and say...
He didn't want to panic the market.
Isn't there a middle ground? You don't have to mislead, but you can...
No, there's not a middle ground. You have to be safe, you have to be vigilant, and you have to be smart.
You're going to like this next couple of voters. It's a mom and a daughter. Mom, Barbara, voted for you in 2016. She's leaning to vote for you again. Now, her daughter was too young to vote last time. She's going to vote for her first time in a presidential campaign, and she is leaning Biden. So imagine the dinner table at their house, okay? So, Barbara, why don't you go first and ask your question?
Bienvenido a Miami.
Thank you.
Mr. Trump, as a frontline ER doctor working through the coronavirus pandemic, I know firsthand, and I've seen that many hospitals throughout the United States are suffering financial hardships. These economic effects are trickling down to the frontline workers. We are being, across the country, frontline workers are being fired, they're being furloughed, our salaries are being cut. And this is also happening in other economic sectors as well, including the travel industry and hospitality. My question to you is, how are you going to get the United States back on track, both in terms of the economy and the pandemic?
So it's happening. We just set a record, 11.4 million jobs. We are going to have a phenomenal third quarter, which will be announced on November 1st, just prior to the big November 3rd day, where I think you're going to see a red wave. But we're going to have a tremendous announcement, I believe.
Is he counting people that went back to work after the initial lockdown? Is that where that 11 million came from?
So many things are happening. So people...
I don't know. I'm interested in this other question from the daughter leaning Biden, or I was going to go back to Biden.
And it happened more than 100 years ago, and it happened now. They were talking about a 42% unemployment rate.
Who was talking about that? I heard 20%.
It just came out at 7.8%. 8% unemployment, and people can't even believe it. Our economy is going to be next year, if we don't have somebody that raises taxes and quadruples taxes, which they want to do and kills everything, our economy is going to be phenomenal next year. We're going to have a phenomenal. And I'll tell you, Savannah, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country last year, including the state of Florida, where we are now, and Pennsylvania.
That's not true in terms of growth.
We had the greatest economy we ever had. We had to close it down. We saved 2 million lives. We're opening it up. We have a V shape, and it's coming back. It's coming back very fast.
I don't know what it is. I just saw the ad. It was, I guess it was a 2020 or 60 Minutes or whatever.
Hundreds of millions of masks and gowns, and we went into the ventilator business because this country was not equipped with ventilators. And I'm not blaming anybody for it, but we're now making thousands of.
Well, it was your fault, so.
And we have all we can use. We're sending them all over the world because the world needs them. So they've worked very hard and really very, very effectively. Thank you. Great question.
Let's talk to Isabella. Put the mic close to your mouth. Okay, go ahead.
Mr. President, my parents are, as you heard, both frontline healthcare workers, and I've seen the physical and the mental tolls that this pandemic has taken on them firsthand, as well as the exacerbation of coronavirus due to Americans who are not wearing masks or participating in social distancing.
Trump probably doesn't know what exacerbation means.
Has your opinion changed on the importance of mask wearing?
No, because I was okay with the masks. I was good with it, but I've heard many different stories on masks. I mean, I have, being president, you have people, they bring meals, they bring this, and I had an instance recently where a very wonderful person is bringing me a meal, and he's playing with his mask, and he's touching his mask all over the place, and then he's bringing a plate in, and I'm saying, well, I don't know if that's so good. I mean, the good news, I didn't eat it, okay? I decided not to eat it. This was a month ago, but look, you have on the masks, you have two stories. You have a story where they want, a story where they don't want. I am all for it.
I don't get that because it's just all of your public health officials, your administration, they're in unison about this. No. They're all in unison about it. The University of Washington.
He don't like Savannah at all, does he?
They have a model that your coronavirus task force relies on. Says that if everyone wore a mask, you could cut expected deaths in half.
And then 60,000
lives. Well, what does that mean?
If you look at Scott, Dr. Scott, he's from great guy, Stanford. He will tell you
he's
that
not an infectious disease expert.
Oh, I don't know. Look, he's an expert. He's one of the great experts of the world.
I don't get it because you have so much power and influence as president. You could go to you could require it at your rallies, and you could say, everyone put on a mask right now. And the University of Washington says you would save lives.
University of Washington, and you have other places say different things. You have a lot of, hey, Dr. Fauci said don't wear a mask, right?
At first, but then everybody agreed.
No, I don't know that he changed his mind. But then you have a report coming out 2 days ago that 85% of the people wearing masks.
I looked at that report. It's not about mask wearing. It was neutral on the question of masks.
We're on the same side. I say wear the mask. I'm fine with it. I have no problem. We're on the same side.
Let's take a break. We're going to get more questions right after this.
He's fine with it. Whew.
Excuse me, your economic background is to get a down payment. So we're going to guarantee first-term.
Now, back to normalcy.
$15,000 down payment for first-term home buyers. In addition to that,
it wasn't
all
McDonald's.
the studies now show, and I've been arguing this for a long time.
He wasn't loving it.
Black entrepreneurs are just as successful as white entrepreneurs or anyone else, given a shot. But you can't get the money. Where do you go to get the startup money? So what President Obama and I did, we had a program where we took $1.5 billion, and we invested it in all the SBAs around the country, in the state SBAs, small business associations, and that generated $30 billion came off.
Thank you for clarifying.
If you have a guarantee of $200,000 for your new startup enterprise, young entrepreneur, you're going to be able to attract, if it's government money, there's a guarantee, you'll be able to attract another $100,000. It generated $30 billion. Well, I'm changing that program, and I'll get this done without much trouble, I believe, in the Congress, from $1.5 billion to $30 billion to $30 billion. That'll take $300 billion off the sideline and grow, because you know. And for example, if you, in fact, and I were the same age and we split our.
I wish if we were going to have to vote for Joe Biden, it was the Joe Biden of 5 or 6 years ago, not this Joe Biden.
On one side of a highway, and yours is in a black neighborhood. Same exact home. Your home will start off being valued 29% less than my home. Yet your
The
insurance
feistier Joe Biden.
higher. You'll be taxed more for it. We've got to end this. That's what got me involved in politics in the first place, a thing called redlining. We can change so much, that we can do so much to change the circumstances to give people a real opportunity.
Cedric, did you hear what you needed?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just saying, do you hear what you needed to hear?
What topic do you think Savannah's going to ask about when they come back?
Okay.
Well, there's a lot more. If you're going to hang around afterwards, I'll tell you more.
Okay.
Let's get
No, but I really mean it. It is the key. Look, this is the way every
They did
other,
COVID and white supremacy.
Like my dad, he lost his job up in Scranton. And it took him 3 years to be able to move down to Delaware, to Claymont, Delaware, a little steel town. And
I guess it'll be another
grandpop to live with him.
audience question. Grandpop.
Apartments became 6 and 8 housing much later. It wasn't. It was just normal apartments. But it took him 5 years to be able to buy a home. Well, we bought a 3-bedroom home with 4 kids and a grandpop living with us, but it accumulated wealth. You build up wealth. That's how middle-class folks make it. They build up wealth.
He's correct.
Able to borrow a little against that to be able to help us get to school, those kinds of things. It's about accumulating wealth. And you're behind an 8 ball. The vast majority of people of color are behind an 8 ball. And it's the same way what's going on now with all this money that's been voted. What's happened? You go to the bank. If
Yeah, that's why I forgot it was a town hall, so it'll be whatever the
Inspector General to
audience asks.
oversee all this help coming from the Congress. And what happens? You go in and they say, do you have an account here? No. Do you have a credit card with this? No. Have you borrowed from us before? No. We bail these suckers out. They're not liable for any of the money.
I'm really enjoying seeing Trump's face without him talking and seeing that scowl and trying to think about what's going through his mind at the moment.
No, not at all. Garnet Valley, Pennsylvania, Republican who voted for President Trump last time.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Vice President Biden.
This is interesting. What's up, Karen?
What's your view on the crime bill that you wrote in 1994, which showed prejudice against minorities? Where do you stand today on that?
Well, first of all, things have changed drastically. That crime bill, when it voted, the Black Caucus voted for it. Every black mayor supported it across the board. And it didn't. The crime bill itself did not have mandatory sentences except for 2 things. It had 3 strikes and you're out, which I voted against in the crime bill. But it had a lot of other things in it that turned out to be both bad and good. I wrote the Violence Against Women Act. That was part of it. The assault weapons ban and other things that were good. What I was against was giving states more money for prison systems that they could build, state prison systems. And you have 93 out of every 100 people in jail now is in a state prison, not in a federal prison, because they built more prisons. I also wrote into that bill a thing called drug courts. I don't believe anybody should be going to jail for drug use. They should be going into mandatory rehabilitation. We should be building rehab centers to have these people housed. We should wipe out, we should decriminalize marijuana, wipe out.
I feel like the lady is very deflated that she wasn't expecting a good answer back to that.
Saying there is no
she thought she had him.
That you have to reveal relative to the use of marijuana. And so there's a lot of things, but in addition to that, we got to change the system. I joined with a group of people in the House to provide for changing the system from punishment to rehabilitation. Along with a guy named Arlen Specter, who you may remember, I wrote the Second Chance Act.
But in the meantime, an awful lot of people were jailed for minor drug crimes after the
Exactly right.
Was it a mistake to support it?
Yes, it was. But here's where the mistake came. The mistake came in terms of what the states did locally. What we did federally, we said it was, and you remember, George, it was all about the same time for the same crime.
Oh, come on, Joe. I was getting ready to give you props for taking responsibility.
10 circuit courts of appeals. Took some really brilliant lawyers working for me in judiciary. We did a study. And we determined what happens if, for the first, second, third offense, for any crime in the criminal justice system, at the federal level, if you're a black man, it's the first time you committed robbery. How long would you go to jail on average? If you're a white man, how long? Black man would go to jail on average 13 years. White man, 2 years. I go down the list of every single crime. So we set up a sentencing commission. We didn't set the time. Every single solitary maximum was reduced in there. But what happened was it became the same time for the same crime. So it said you have to serve between 1 and 3 years. They ended up becoming much lower. Black folks went to jail a lot less than they would have before, but it was a mistake.
Let me ask another follow-up on the crime bill. It also funded 100,000 police back in 1994. You've often said that more cops clearly mean less crime. Do you still believe that?
Yes, if in fact they're involved in community policing, not jump squads. For example, when we had community policing from the mid-90s on till Bush got elected, what happened? Violent crime actually went down precipitously. Remember the significant rise in violent crime that was occurring in the late 80s into the 90s. It went down, and fewer African Americans were arrested.
The reason for the drop in crime is because that was like 20-something years after Roe v. Wade. So a good chunk of that was children that would have been prone to a life of crime, unwanted children, had been aborted. Then there's also, we took lead out of paint. 40 years before that. That had a great effect on lowering the crime rate.
She could call and say,
not anything that Joe Biden did in his crime bill.
It was her, because they know if she knew that in fact they'd report, they'd never report the crime. She'd never report. So it actually started to come down. What happened? They eliminated the funding for community policing. Community policing doesn't mean more people coming in up-armored Humvees and swarming like that. When they did, it turned out that by the time we got to the late 90s, the crime had come down so much, and the mayors and everybody asked the question, where do you want me to spend the money? They say, well, only 1% thought violent crime was a problem. It was as high as 22%.
But right now we have a systemic problem. How do you get the kind of policing, prevent the kind of policing?
You have to change the way in which they police.
He hit the nail on the head right there with the militarization of the police. How do you spend the money? You got to keep those contractors that are making all those body armors and the up-armored tanks that the police are using now.
To sit down.
You got to keep them making ammunition, so you got to send the ammunition somewhere.
Up with significant reforms that need to take place in communities. You have to bring them.
I wouldn't say anybody's tanking.
I've observed is
Trump is being Trump, Biden's being Biden. It's exactly what you would have expected. We'll go back over to Trump is awfully angry and has been very confrontational with Savannah Guthrie.
She voted for Clinton in 2016, but recently changed her registration from Democrat to Independent. She says she's truly undecided. Her name's Becky Lightman. Hello, Becky. What's your question?
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Nice to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you. So, corporate tax rates are a hot button issue, and you have cut corporate tax rates, and your opponent Joe Biden is planning to raise them.
Right.
A lot of Americans think that corporations don't pay their share of taxes and want to see those tax rates increase. Right. What do you say to those Americans to maybe tell them why you want the corporate tax rate lower and why that helps them?
It's a great question. We've created more jobs than this country has ever created. We were up to 100.
That is not true.
Jobs. We were never even close.
I'm not here to fact check. I'm just here to say smart ass things. But
jobs. Companies are pouring
that's
into
not true.
Because of the tax rate. And if Biden comes in and raises taxes on everybody, including middle income taxes, which he wants to do, you will blow this thing and you'll end up with a depression, the likes of which you've never had. That's what's going to happen. We have something that's really good. The reason we're coming back so strong is because
we're getting ready to enter a depression, the likes of which we've never had.
Car companies are moving into Michigan, into Ohio, into South Carolina and North Carolina just today. So what's happening is they're coming in.
I mean, what's new?
Our taxes, our corporate taxes were the highest in the world, and now they're among the lowest.
But I look forward to going back to the teeny lies where I've got to, like, point out the little shit around the edges with Joe Biden instead of just like, no, what he's saying is completely untrue over here.
Middle income tax package, but it's a great question. And if he comes along and raises rates, all those companies that are coming in, they will leave the U.S. so fast your head will spin. We can't let that happen.
On the subject of taxes, as you know, the New York Times has obtained, it says, years of your tax returns, among other things. It says that you have debts.
The audio on NBC really sucks ass, and it's bothering me.
In the next 4 years. The question is, on behalf of voters, who do you owe for?
My audio for my stream sounds better than the audio on one of the oldest cable network, or not cable, broadcast networks
lot of real estate. I have real estate. You know a lot of it, okay? Right down the road, Doral. Big stuff, great stuff. I'm very when I decided to run, I'm very under-levered, fortunately, but I'm very under-levered. I have a very, very small...
Oh, I know what it is. It's because it's Trump. Nobody wanted to get close to him to put the microphone on him. They were like far away from him, like, here, Mr. President, let me put your mic on.
These great properties all over the world, and frankly,
afraid that motherfucker is still contagious.
In San Francisco, I don't love what's happening to San Francisco.
Well, do I hear you right? It sounds like you're saying $400 million isn't that much.
Biggest office buildings.
But are you confirming that yes, you do owe some $400 million?
What I'm saying is that it's a tiny percentage of my net worth.
That sounds like yes.
And you'll see that soon because we're doing things. You know, we've given, I think it's 108 or 112 pages of financial detail.
The Corona grab.
Elections, and you know, we have to file as the president, as any politician, you have to file. Nobody ever looks at that. When they do, they see how incredible the company is, but more importantly...
So wait a minute, is Leslie Jones on some game show now? Is she not on Saturday Night Live anymore?
Very, very small. It's called mortgages. Yeah. People have a house, they put a mortgage.
Any foreign bank, any foreign entity?
Not that I know of, but I will probably, because it's so easy to solve, and if you'd like to do, I will let you know who I owe whatever small amount of money. I want to say...
Yeah. Show us your taxes. That'll let us know.
It's very straight. It's very, very straight. But it's a tiny percentage of the worth. Did you ever hear the expression under-levered?
Yeah.
I am extremely under-levered.
Well, here's the thing. You could clear this up tonight by just releasing your tax returns yourself.
Exactly.
That's what I understand. I think people are just wondering.
As you know,
you're the only...
It turned out that I am under-audited.
You are correct. It's like everyone's using the same mic. Like there's just one boom mic hanging down.
Not being under-audited previously, and so did other people at NBC, and I am under-audited. So that was solved. That's good. I am under-audited. No person in their right mind would release prior to working out the deal with the IRS. And I'll go a step further. I'm treated very badly by the IRS. They treat me very, very badly. You have people...
Do you know who is in charge of the IRS?
Very badly.
At this moment, it is Donald J. Trump.
But we're under audit. They like to change the game, change the rules, do everything. You saw what they did with the Tea Party people. You saw what they did with the religious group.
But to be clear, there is no law or rule that prohibits you from releasing your tax returns.
Except common sense and intelligence and having lawyers. Because I would love to release them, and as soon as we come to a conclusion, I will release them, and very gladly. But if you go to elections, and if you take a look, you'll see 112. I think it's 112. It talks about the income, which is rather massive. It talks about all of the properties. They have them listed. You can never learn.
His entire income is just his basing his worth off of his name and his name value and his brand.
My son is here. They run the company.
Here comes Smokey.
It says that you paid $750 in taxes in the year you were elected. Is that true or not?
That's a statutory number. It's a statutory.
But is that true?
I think it's a filing number. You pay $750. It's a filing or filing.
What is he talking about?
I don't know. I can tell you this.
And that was the first year he paid any taxes in several years.
As you know, they have to go to jail. It's illegal. But their numbers were wrong.
Thank you.
But let me tell you what else. I don't owe money to any of these sinister people. This has been going on for years now.
Please, ABC, come back. I want to go back to Joe Biden.
And it turned out to be that Hillary Clinton and the Democrats were dealing with Russia, not me. It's a whole hoax. So I would not mind at all saying who it is, but it's a very small...
That's not true. The Durham report never happened. They've closed that investigation because they're not going to charge anybody because they found nothing.
It's extremely under-levered. And it's levered with normal banks. Not a big deal.
All right, let's take a break. We'll get more voter questions right after this.
Oh, thank God.
With Facebook Shop.
Oh, phew.
From the Constitution Center in Philadelphia.
I have Trump fatigue really bad.
And the Supreme Court is our next topic. The questioner, Nathan Osborne of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Democrat.
What up, Nathan?
Hi, I'm George, Mr. Vice President.
Hey, Nathan.
Our country's first Supreme Court gave its first rulings just 2 blocks from here, from 1791 to 1800. And it's become more polarized since then. Merrick Garland didn't get a hearing for all of 2016, and Amy Coney Barrett's being pushed through at the last minute, even though millions have already voted. So what do you think about ideas from people
Seriously,
like
man.
others to put in place safeguards that will help ensure more long-term balance and stability? And what do you say to LGBTQ Americans?
And in 2016, I was talking about how much I always liked Trump. I liked watching the Trump show. Nope, sick of it. Nope, take it back. No more.
The last point, work my way back. I think there's...
If I never see that motherfucker again in my life, if he never, like, he's not going to pop up on Dave and let Dave make fun of him anymore. So I'm so done with him.
I've been going around the country, Florida, and anyway. And, my reading...
The days of fun Trump are over.
What the judge said was she didn't answer very many questions at all. And I don't even think she has laid out much of a judicial philosophy in terms of the basis upon which she thinks are there unenumerated rights in the Constitution and the rest. So, number one. So I think there's great reason to be concerned for the LGBT community, something I've fought very hard for a long time to make sure there's equality across the board. Number two, I think that also health care overall is very much in jeopardy as a consequence of the president's going to go directly after this election directly to the Supreme Court within a month to try to get Obamacare wiped out after 10 million people have already lost their insurance.
It's one of the main reasons they're wanting to ram her through so fast.
Plus 100 million people.
The SCOTUS has said they're going to take up the case right after the election.
I don't think it's appropriate. I think the Constitution implies. There's no provision in the Constitution. My problem is I made a mistake of teaching constitutional law for 21 years.
The court didn't want to rule before the election.
The Constitution implies.
I think the court would be very happy issuing a 4-4 decision and kicking it back down and letting the ACA stand.
Of the Senate and
the president's president for all 4 years, isn't he?
No, he is. But once an election begins, by implication, it is inconsistent with the constitutional principles in my view.
That's just absolute bullshit, but that's what the Republicans said in 2016. Like, you make the hypocrisy argument, don't make the argument like you're the one standing for the law.
Should have been held until this election is over.
As if Republicans care about you calling them out on hypocrisy.
Who wins this election? He should be able to.
How about that question of expanding the court? Here's what you said exactly 1 year ago tonight at a Democratic debate. You said, I would not get into court packing. I would not pack the court. That's not what you're saying now.
No, he said that like earlier today.
Reason enough to rethink your position?
What is the nomination? What I wanted to do, George, if I had answered the question directly, then all the focus would be on what's Biden going to do if he wins, instead of on, is it appropriate what is going on now? And it should stay, this is the thing that the president loves to do, always take our eye off the ball. What's at stake? One of the things Pete has suggested is, and there's a number of constitutional scholars have suggested.
There are
at least 4 or 5 options that are available to determine whether or not you can.
He is going to get incredibly embarrassed here in
consistent, arguably, with the
18 days.
I have not been a fan
18 days.
Court packing, because I think it just generates what will happen. Whoever wins, it just keeps moving in a way that is inconsistent.
And when a narcissist takes that kind of blow to the ego,
well, I'm not a fan. I
don't know that he's going to want to pop up again.
Not how he wins, but how it's handled. How it's handled. But there's a number of things that are going to be coming up, and there's going to be a lot of discussion about other alternatives as well.
What does that mean, how it's handled? How will that determine whether it's for
example, there's actually real live debate on the floor. If people are really going to be able to have a time to go through this, I don't know anybody who's gone on the floor and that's been a controversy.
Okay, so here's the deal, though, is like Joe Biden is not going to pack the court. He's not wanting to say that he doesn't want to pack the court, which he is on record saying, as George Stephanopoulos brought up, because he doesn't want to turn off people like me who have been on here. Like I did a complete about face, like, okay, I'll vote for Biden. Okay, I'm down with it.
Consequence of COVID.
Just because, like, seeing them side by side right here, Biden is a breath of fresh air. I want to go back to wonky policy discussions.
If they vote on
I don't even want to turn the volume back up on that chode on the right side.
What happens from that point on?
You know, you said so many times during the campaign, all through the course of your career, it's important to level with
it is,
American
but George,
people.
if I say,
But ultimately, Biden is just, he has respect for the institution.
It won't be about what's going on now, the improper way they're proceeding.
But don't voters have a right to know where you stand?
They do have a right to know where they stand. They'll have a right to know where I stand before they vote.
So you'll come out with a clear position before Election Day?
Yes, depending on how they handle this. But look, what you should do is you got to make sure you vote. And vote for a senator.
See, he's wanting it to seem like that's on the table to not turn people like me off. Because his favorability rating has gone up and up and up since that first debate.
But if you oppose my position, vote for Trump. Vote for a Republican who shares that view. But that's your opportunity to get involved.
That's exactly right. I would like him to come out and say that, yes, I will consider packing the court
stay and stay.
because of this, and this that the Republicans have done.
Disaffected Republican. You cast a write-in vote for John Kasich in 2016. You're going to vote against President Trump.
But he's made a bet that he's going to pill off Republicans. And if he says that he's going to pack the court, that sounds radical, like he's giving into the radical left. And that's he doesn't want to portray that.
I'll be darned.
And some of his closest allies.
So he's trying to like really thread the needle right now.
And Senator Ted Kennedy. Sadly, today we have highly partisan and dysfunctional governance, and I believe
he is being dodgy, but like it's for the reason that I said, and that's the problem with politics is it comes off as disingenuous.
The temptation to exact revenge.
And it seems like you're slimy, but like he's making a very calculated decision.
Bipartisanship, civility, and honor to our democracy.
It's written by a fellow who won the Pulitzer Prize for a book he wrote about the presidency. He said, you know, I doubt whether Biden is really Irish. He doesn't hold a grudge. In politics,
the second stimulus is a whole nother. If Trump could right now, he'd give you 10 grand.
The second point I'd make is everybody.
The problem is Mitch McConnell in the Senate. They've pretty much said nothing. No, we're not going to pass anything because Pelosi and Trump agreed to yet another deal today that they think the Senate might pass. Doubtful.
By the way your father was and Tip was and others. You don't question another man or woman's motive. You can question their judgment, but not their motive.
Well, I've heard him tell this story before, and I disagree with him 100%.
I stand up and I say, you know, we need an infrastructure bill, Senator, but I tell you what, you're in the pocket of the cement industry. But let's see what we can do. You can't get anywhere.
But somebody that is bought and paid for by big finance, health care, like Joe Biden, has to say something like that. Oh, you can attack my motives.
Listen, what I will be doing as if I'm elected president, the first
humans are slimy.
You can ask if they tell you your dad's
and politicians are human.
I'm going to pick up the phone and call them and say, let's get together. We got to figure out how we're going to move forward here because there's so many things we really do agree on. And with Trump,
I think the attacks on Nancy Pelosi, that's part of the misogyny.
Republicans who don't do exactly what he says gets taken away. There's going to be, I promise you, between 4 and 8 Republican senators are willing to move on things.
Misogyny goes over well with the GOP. Pelosi is a lot less likable figure than Joe Biden. Joe Biden's hard to attack.
I've been working on a thing called the cure.
I mean, they're trying their damnedest. But like my friend said, like they dropped a bunch of pictures of Hunter with a crack pipe in his like mouth, looking all cool and shit. You're trying to make us not like him? Like, come on.
Research and development on cancer alternatives, NIH, and particularly specific cancer initiatives. And we only had at the time, I think it was 111 or 114, whatever it was, votes in the House. I don't hold me the exact number. And we had fewer than 40 in the Senate. But after he was elected, I got those people together as vice president, and we sat down and we worked it out. And we ended up getting it passed.
This is totally going to go on another half hour, isn't it?
And 94 votes in the Senate. And
the debate was supposed to be an hour and a half.
Because it had to do with the Biden cancer moonshot I've been working on. Mitch McConnell Mitch McConnell stood up, and I was presiding officer, and moved to name the bill after my deceased son, Bo, who had just died. So there are ways to bring this together.
But how about the question of political accountability? And is there some tension between that and...
Oh, great. Joe Biden's talking about how great a person Mitch McConnell is. That makes me want to vote for him.
By President Trump.
See, Joe Biden has
do with that evidence.
What the Biden Justice Department...
He's worked a good strategy by not saying anything. Because the more he talks, the more I'm going to be like, yeah, I remember what I don't like about Joe Biden.
Should be prosecuted. They are not my lawyers. They're not my personal lawyers.
So you're not going to rule it in?
Exactly. Makes it more relatable. And when he said the thing about addiction during the debate, that one points with me too. And that's another thing, like human empathy. We need somebody that has human empathy in the presidency.
As if it's your own law firm. You don't own that Justice Department.
And honestly, Joe Biden might have the most empathy of any president since Carter.
Remember any Republican president going out there, or former Democratic president?
Very true.
Prosecute him. You ever hear that? Or, by the way, I'm being sued because a woman's accused me of rape. Represent me. Represent me. Personally represent me in the state of New York on my not allowing my tax returns. What's that all about? What is that about?
Got to take another break. We'll be right back.
Oh, God.
The executive power shall be vested.
I put it off, but here we go.
I got them funded. They were on a year-to-year basis. They could have been put out of business. As soon as our country had a little bad year, they would have said, I'm sorry, we're not going to fund you. I got them 10-year funding and financing, and more than they even asked for. I became very friendly with a lot of the heads. But we've done more.
His voice is just so grating now.
But criminal justice reform...
I'm sorry. We'll go back to Biden when he comes back.
President Obama and Biden never even tried...
Because the interesting thing about Trump was the beginning and the dynamic with Savannah Guthrie.
I'm very proud of it.
Like now, it's the same fucking shit. I'm ready for it to be over. 18 days.
I'm very proud of it.
Let's go to our next question. We have Paulette Dale. She leans slightly to Biden. She voted for Clinton in 2016. She's registered as a Republican. Paulette, what's your question?
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
I have to say, you have a great smile.
Wow.
You're so handsome when you smile.
And that gets an applause line?
Immigrants to the United States who fled Eastern Europe due to religious persecution.
Right.
The United States immigration policies are very personal for me.
Right.
Surveys show that most Americans and the majority of Republicans support the Dreamers program. So my question for you, Mr. President, is if you are elected to a second term, do you expect to pursue your previous efforts to cut the DACA program?
Yeah.
Why or why not?
And the DACA is somewhat different than Dreamers. You understand that, and you understand it better than anybody probably in this room. Where do you come from, by the way, originally?
My grandparents were from Russia and Poland.
That's very good. Okay. So
the Dreamers were part of the DACA program.
We're going to take care of Dreamer. It's working right now. We're negotiating different aspects of immigration and immigration law. We've built now over 400 miles of border wall, southern border. Mexico's working very closely with us. We have the strongest border we've ever had. We want people to come into our country. They have to come in legally, but we are working very hard.
And I think the Trump fatigue is a real thing, and we're going to see it in the election. They were predicting, like the RNC was predicting him to lose by 5 to 7 million votes. I wouldn't doubt that it's 10 million votes.
There are, under your administration, no new applicants are allowed. And in fact, the DACA recipients now have to renew every year as opposed to every 2 years. So in fact, the DACA program has been curtailed by your administration.
Well, what happened is because of the pandemic, much changed on the immigration front. Mexico is heavily infected, as you know, and we've made it very, very difficult to come in because of the pandemic and other reasons. prisons and crime. But we have a very strong border right now, and we have to keep it that way. But we want people to come into our country, but they have to come in through a merit system, and they have to come in legally.
I'm not the only one watching the commercials on ABC, am I?
What happened is because of the pandemic, we have to be extra cautious.
You have been promising this immigration bill since, well, at least July, when you told my colleague on Telemundo it was coming, but nothing's come yet.
It's very happy that the fact is...
What do you guys think the chances are that a debate happens next week?
You know, you catch somebody, they could be a murderer, they could be a rapist, and we're supposed to release them into our country. These are the laws that I inherited. We ended that program. Now, I think you're going to see something very, very good. The whole immigration, if you look at what's going on, people used to pour into our country, and especially during the pandemic, I think even you...
Net immigration to this country has been flat for like 15 years.
There are some who love you. Some of them are sitting right around here, and some who will never vote for you. But there are people in the middle. There are people who aren't sure.
That's right.
There are people who...
I don't even know how that's possible at this
give you a
point.
second chance and how you might improve in a second term. 30 seconds, what would you say to them?
Because I've done a great job. We had the strongest economy in the world. We closed it up. We are coming around the corner. The vaccines are coming out soon, and our economy is strong. We are at a level with jobs like we've never been before. We've rebuilt our military. We've rebuilt our borders. We had no borders. We had no nothing. We've rebuilt so much.
We had no nothing.
Tax cut in the history of our country, greatest regulation cut, equally as important, and we created new levels of jobs that nobody thought was possible. And
now, that might be a true statement, Creed.
I got to leave it there. I got a wrap from the control room. Mr. President, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to the voters' questions. That concludes our town hall. We do want to thank the president again, as well as our audience in hot Miami and all of you watching at home.
So, wow, like, that was substantially shorter than like...
in a 2012...
You guys all we saw Biden taking a question and talking while they were still doing the intro over on NBC.
Waterways from the Commonwealth to the Gulf. Fracking has made...
So the Trump campaign was like, yeah, we'll do it, but it needs to be very abbreviated. But they only took, what, 4 questions, 5 questions?
Have already begun to transition people away from fossil fuels. What industries that are not harmful to human health and the environment are you planning for Southwest Pennsylvania and the nation?
Well, first of all, I make it clear I do not propose banning fracking. I think you have to make sure that fracking is in fact not emitting methane or polluting the well or dealing with...
We'll know for sure when a vaccine is coming. I think Fauci said the beginning of December.
Very well, number one. Number two, what we have to
end of November maybe.
Rests in renewable energy.
And we'll know if we'll have it in like January, February. That's the time frame.
Right now, because I'm going to say something that's going to sound self-serving, but I managed the Recovery Act, and I was able to invest billions of dollars into bringing down the cost per BTU of wind and solar. So now it's cheaper than coal, it's cheaper than oil right now. And it has great, great promise. And it's also the fastest growing employer in the energy industry. And so that
is true, but now in terms of the other debate, now Trump wanted to have the debate tonight. We're talking, these town halls are going to draw 10, 15 million people each.
Working in the industry
a debate between the two of them, that was 77 million, I think, 74 million.
Number two, we should be moving toward finding the
so Trump, as a campaign strategy, absolutely would be like, yes, we need to do that debate.
That we're still going to be able to...
Biden is a strategy. I don't think he gets anything out of it.
Some gas to be
that first debate was enough. Biden does not need to meet with Trump again.
We'll be able to have
the reason I think it will happen is because there's a whole cottage industry around debate media coverage.
Every time we talk about,
and there's a lot of money in 77 million people tuning in to watch something.
it's a joke, and I think it's jobs. Because what we're going to have happen is you'll be able to see now, as I started to say.
That's why I was surprised that there wasn't a debate tonight. But, I mean, still the media got something out of this.
Only on those things that, in fact, also are not only made in America, but building an infrastructure that's clean and new. And what we have to do is focus on the transmission of energy across the country from areas relating to solar and wind. The reason is that that has not been mastered yet. I met a lot of people in Silicon Valley. The battery technology is increasing significantly, so you're going to be able to have, for example, solar on your home and a battery this by this, as I'm showing you here, in your basement. So when the sun doesn't shine for 5 days, you still have enough energy. So we're making significant progress. The other thing we're going to do is provide an awful lot of work. It's estimated to put close to 1 million people to work by weather.
Elon Musk is going to get us some new batteries, isn't he, Creed?
2 million homes. Because we'll save tons and tons of energy, or like billions of barrels of energy over time.
Why Trump still wanted to go on. Biden would only do it virtually. Trump didn't want to do it virtually because his strategy against Biden is to try to bring out his stutter. So he needed to be able to talk over top of Biden.
A member of the Boilermakers Local 154, Sean Stefani, was quoted in the New York Times today saying, "You can't have it both ways." It says you can't meet your goal to end fossil fuels without ending fracking. What do you say to people like Sean who doubt your denial?
You say it's what they're supposed to do, but it's been political theater for
endorse me, okay? So
at least 25 years.
Because I sat down with them in great detail with the leadership exactly what I would do, number one.
And I'm sorry I didn't do the classic debate watch-alongs that I was going to do with the different guests.
Tax breaks and
that was a great idea. We're going to do that. It won't be next year because there's not a presidential election next year.
We should stop that and save billions of dollars.
We will do that idea in 4 years at the 2024 election.
The difference between me and the new Green Deal, they say automatically by 2030 we're going to be carbon free. Not possible.
So are you for it or against it?
It needs to be possible, or otherwise we're not going to survive as a race.
My deal is a crucial framework, but not the new Green Deal. The new Green Deal calls for elimination of all non-renewable energy by 2030. You can't get there. You're going to need to be able to transition, George, to be able to
exactly. It's a very bad sign.
We invest in new technologies that allow us to do things that get us to a place where we
The difference between this year and last year is that Joe Biden doesn't have Hillary Clinton's negatives.
The plan where we allow
I think the Trump fatigue is a real thing, too. In 2016, there was the voters that were ashamed to admit that they were voting for Trump, and that gave him a little uptick. This time around, I think there's a Trump fatigue, and there were people that voted for him in 2016 that may not admit to it to their crowd of friends that are all hardcore Trump, but are going to go in, they're going to vote for Biden.
And people, when I say that, they wonder what I'm talking about. The biggest carbon sink in the world is the Amazon. More carbon absorbed from the air, diminishing global warming, in the Amazon than all the carbon emitted on a yearly basis from the United States of America, from all vehicles and all means. So we have to use our imaginations. We have to move in the direction as well, providing...
Hey, Joe, that may be true,
electric vehicles will
but like I read an article the other day that the Amazon is in danger of turning into a savanna.
But we're lagging. We're not investing. We're not doing any of the research.
Got to take another quick break. We'll be right back.
So who won this debate so far? Trump? So I wonder, has George asked him about... I don't know if we're going to have time to do this here.
The mob refuses to do any vetting of Joe Biden. Now, since the end of August, he has taken fewer...
So this has been the big story on conservative social media over the last few days.
Until the election, the Biden campaign strategy is now clear. Hide. Keep Joe hidden from the public. We, the people, run out the clock.
It's weird. We just watched him, and he went longer than Trump.
We're Secretary Kayleigh McEnany was locked out of a personal Twitter account after sharing that story that we mentioned earlier about Hunter Biden. She wasn't alone today. Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, is now admitting Twitter's actions on the article were, quote, not great. You think, Jack? Here with more White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany.
Savannah did win.
How are you feeling? You had
great call.
Diagnosis. Not fun, I'm sure. How are you feeling now?
Still feeling great. No symptoms, so I can't complain. A lot better off than a lot of.
Well, good for you.
Were. So I am very.
Yeah, well, I will say you're younger and healthier, unlike me, old person. We're at greater risk, which of course nobody likes for anybody. And hopefully with the new therapeutics and vaccine on the horizon, that's
so is Fox News taking it seriously now?
I really didn't understand from @Jack what he was trying to say, because if you share a the Russia-Trump conspiracy theory, I don't remember people getting locked out for those lies that we now know they shared then and even today still share.
No fly, no win.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It made no sense what he said. And
I did not notice a fly landing on anybody.
A news
did you, Pumpkin?
Emails, pictures of the emails, which even the Biden campaign does not dispute the authenticity of the emails. They had a chance today. They did not. But meanwhile, you're allowed a story about President Trump in the Atlantic.
Well, Miss Press Secretary, you have shitty internet.
The content of the email. You have the Ayatollah.
And see, this is one of the things that the right does. Have you guys read the emails? I didn't pull them up. I didn't know what she had to say.
By the way, by Fox News' news division.
There is nothing in those fucking emails.
You are not allowed to share that information, and make no mistake, if they can ban the press secretary.
But all it is they're sharing headlines that they think are sensational. They don't actually know what the fucking story is. There's not a fucking right winger out there that can tell you what Joe Biden is even alleged to have done in the Ukraine.
Been reporting on the story.
Maybe a percentage of them will be able to tell you, like, he got the prosecutor fired that was investigating the company his son worked for. But that's not true. He got the prosecutor fired that wouldn't investigate the company that his son worked for. It's the exact opposite. That's why it's a bullshit fucking story, and this is a bullshit story again. But Twitter and Facebook, the way they handled it, clearly this is maybe the Republicans knew when they shared out the story that Twitter and Facebook would try, because what Twitter and Facebook are doing right now is they are positioning themselves for a Biden administration, because they're worried that a Biden administration may put regulations on them, so they're going to start regulating themselves.
The Kazakh oligarchs, the Russian nationals, Kazakh nationals, Ukrainian nationals, Chinese nationals, and all of these monies together.
So they put out this bullshit story, I think knowing that Twitter and Facebook were going to, and like they didn't censor them. It's not censorship. They just put that little flag of the fact checker on there.
It'd be the top news story. It'd be the top trend on Twitter because there's one standard.
So now that's the story. It's not even about the alleged thing that was so bad in the Ukraine. It's about how they're being persecuted again. How the right wingers are victims of the big bad liberal media.
Hunter introduced a Ukrainian oligarch to his father, Joe Biden, and that email is censored, blacklisted, erased from Twitter and Facebook.
It's bullshit.
Ourselves in a position where we're more isolated in the world than we've ever been. Our allies are our goat alone. America first has made America alone. You have Iran closer to having enough nuclear material to build a bomb. North Korea has more bombs and missiles available to it. We find ourselves where our NATO allies are publicly saying they can't count on us.
Fuck this. I'm not high enough for this. I need something stronger.
In the Far East, we find ourselves in the Western Pacific, where we're isolated as well. You have Japan and and South Korea at odds with one another. China is making moves. So I would say we find ourselves less secure than we've been. I do compliment the president on the deal with Israel recently, but if you take a look, we're not very well trusted around the world. When 17 major nations in the world were asked who they trust more, who's the better leader.
Biden is boring, but I'm so ready for boring. Aren't you ready for boring? And I tell you what, after we wrap up with the town hall, we'll do the pastor on the plane story.
And look what Putin's doing.
Biden didn't used to be boring, man. That's as I said. Like I wish we had the 6 or 7 year ago Biden. That's a little more feisty.
Now, by the way, than when we left in Afghanistan, and we find ourselves in a situation.
He's competent, but he's definitely lost a step.
And NATO,
if he had ran in 2016, you'd be looking like this is the man that's running for re-election.
Whether we're there, you see what's happening
against Ted Cruz or some shit.
Poland to
wouldn't that be a much better world?
And the rise of totalitarian regimes in the world, and as well as this president embraces all the thugs in the world. I mean, he's best friends with the leader of North Korea, sending love letters. He doesn't take on Putin in any way, and he is just he's.
Honestly, I think the North Korea thing is kind of funny.
Deal by Xi and China. So I
seriously
respectfully suggest no.
Vince McMahon is not who he used to be.
No coherent plan for foreign policy. We've always ruled. We've been most effective as a world leader, in my humble opinion, not just by the exercise of our power, we're the most powerful nation in the world, but the power of our example. That's what's led the rest of the world to follow us on almost everything. He's pulled out of almost every international organization. He gets laughed at when he goes to the, literally, not figuratively, when he goes to the United Nations.
It's true.
It's not about the president per se, it's about the nation and the lack of respect that's shown to us.
I want to get one more question in this segment, and it comes from Mika Hack. She's from State College, Pennsylvania. This is your first presidential election that you're voting.
Yes.
Hi, Mika. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm the proud mom of 2 girls, 8 and 10. My youngest daughter is transgender. The Trump administration has attacked the rights of transgender people, banning them from military service, weakening non-discrimination protections, and even removing the word transgender from some government websites. How will you, as president, reverse this dangerous and discriminatory agenda and ensure that the lives and rights of LGBTQ people are protected under U.S. law?
I will flat out just change the law. Eliminate.
I'm tired of seeing quotes by the president and wondering, did he really say that? Like, I believe that he said that. I got to look it up and find out. Did he actually? Oh, shit, he actually said that.
High school educated, well-read man who was a really decent guy, and I was being dropped off to get an application in the center of our city, Wilmington, Delaware, the corporate capital of the world at the time. And these 2 men, I'm getting out to get an application to be a lifeguard in the African-American community because there was a big swimming pool complex. And these 2 men...
Is this the corn pop story?
Kissed one another. I'm getting out of the car at the light, and I turn to my dad. My dad looked.
Ridiculously exhausting imbecile is a great description of Trump.
A 10-year-old child decides, I decided I want to be transgender. That's what I think I'd like to be. It'll make my life a lot easier. There should be 0 discrimination. And what's happening is too many transgender women of color are being murdered.
That's true. That is a huge problem in this country.
I think it's up to now 17. Don't hold me to that number, but it's
like I've got to listen to all the right-wingers talk about all the Antifa violence. No. Let's talk about all the transgender black women that have been murdered this year.
That there should be any right denied your daughter.
But it's not like they care about violence anyway.
1 or 2. One, your daughter, that your other daughter has a right to be and do. None. 0. And by the way, my son Beau passed away, was the Attorney General of the state of Delaware. He was the guy who got the first transgender law passed in the state of Delaware, and because of a young man who became a woman who worked for him in the Attorney General's office.
Got one more.
Honestly, Beau would have been a good candidate for president.
ABC.
No, I wasn't prepared for that. I'm like, chew. See what we can watch real fast during this break. We'll get rid of Kayleigh McEnany. Aw, that's mean. Hunter seems all right.
Brought together more than 50 people to sit inside of a closed-door room for hours.
So this is Kamala Harris. This is another thing. When I was so stoked for the vice presidential debate, it was because I thought this was the Kamala that was going to show up. Kamala, I'm sorry.
Despite a coronavirus outbreak among senators of this very committee. By contrast, in response to this recent Senate outbreak, the leaders of Senate Republicans rightly postponed business on
Yeah, I'd smoke crack with Hunter.
to protect the health and safety of senators and staff. Mr. Chairman, for the same reasons, this hearing,
I've never seen Dewey Cox. I'm sorry.
the decision to hold this hearing now is reckless and places facilities workers, janitorial staff, and congressional aides and Capitol Police at risk. Not to mention that while tens of millions of Americans are struggling to pay their bills, the Senate should be prioritizing coronavirus relief and providing financial support to those families.
Nail on the head.
The American people need to have help to make rent or their mortgage payment.
That is the pressing issue right now. And they're focused on getting her on the court because it's a power grab.
Small businesses need help, as do the cities, towns, and hospitals that this crisis has pushed to the brink. The House bill would help families and small businesses get through this crisis. But Senate Republicans have not lifted a finger for
150 days. Wow.
which is how long that bill has been here in the Senate, to move the bill. Yet, this committee is determined to rush a Supreme Court confirmation hearing through in just 16 days. Senate Republicans have made it crystal clear that rushing a Supreme Court nomination is more important than helping and supporting the American people who are suffering from a deadly pandemic and a devastating economic crisis.
So I'm guessing she's just not as good extemporaneously. Like, she has to have a chance to put herself together. Like, she is excellent in these hearings.
The schedule. So here we are. The Constitution of the United States entrusts the Senate with the solemn duty to carefully consider nominations for lifetime appointments to the United States Supreme Court. Yet the Senate majority is rushing this process and jamming President Trump's nominee through the Senate.
And Kamala's not that bad. That's another...
Just 22 days.
She's definitely not my first pick. But she has a lot of redeeming qualities. So that makes voting for Joe Biden easier.
Illegitimate committee process is underway. A clear majority of Americans want whomever wins this election to fill this seat. And my Republican colleagues know that. Yet they are deliberately defying the will of the people in their attempt to roll back the rights and protections provided under the Affordable Care Act. And let's remember, in 2017, President Trump and congressional Republicans repeatedly tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. But remember,
How many times did they vote to repeal? 50-something?
demanded Republicans stop trying to take away the American people's health care. Republicans finally realized that the Affordable Care Act...
Are you saying that Kamala is a horrible loudmouth? Because if you're a Trump supporter and your critique of Kamala is she's a horrible loudmouth, then like
nominate judges.
I'm gonna have to guess that's some like misogyny shit or something.
This administration, with the support of Senate Republicans, will be in front of the Supreme Court on November 10th.
Freakin absolutely is a loudmouth.
Affordable Care Act should be struck down. That's in 29 days that'll happen. And that's a big reason why Senate Republicans are rushing this process.
That's absolutely, because that's when the Supreme Court is going to take up the case. We got a dude in a Ken Bone looking sweater over here. Let's find out what he's got to say. That was the town hall from 2016, right? Ken Bone with the red sweater. Why do I remember that name?
Instead of being chastened by being one of the few presidents, the only president to be impeached and then have a member of his own party vote to expel him, it emboldened him. So, but what I will do, hopefully I'll go back to being a professor at the University of Pennsylvania and making the case that I've been made and at the Biden Institute at the University of Delaware, focusing on these same issues relating to what constitutes
did he just say if he doesn't win, he's going to go back to being a professor? Because, dude, man, if you don't win, just go back to being a private citizen and enjoy your retirement, man.
Claymont, Delaware, and in Delaware we have the 8th largest black population.
That's exactly right. Pumpkin, are you a fan of Kamala?
I got deeply involved. I'm no great shakes. I don't mean I wasn't John Lewis. I don't mean to imply that. But it's the thing that's motivated. My dad used to have an expression, for real. He said, everyone's entitled to be treated with dignity. Everybody. And it was real. Everybody is. And so whether I'm a defeated candidate for president back teaching or I'm elected president, it is a major element of everything that I'm about. Because
he's really handsome when he smiles. You know that, right?
This is every single solitary generation. The dial has moved closer and closer and more to inclusion. And we are a country that is a country of...
Exactly. You should be.
Years ago, indigenous people, and everyone else is an immigrant.
And her corporate ties.
A diverse country. And unless we are able to treat people equally, we're just never going to meet our potential.
But overall, I agree with you. Like, all she's doing is, like, she's a woman and she ain't taking any shit. People don't like that.
You're not hearing me race baiting. You're not hearing me dividing.
That's what I mean when I talk about misogyny.
Bring people together.
Just because a woman won't take your shit doesn't make her a horrible loudmouth.
We better be able to do it again. We better be able to do it again.
Mr. Vice President, if you lose, what will that say to you?
Here's Smokey.
Well, it could say that I'm a lousy candidate and I didn't do a good job. But I think, I hope that...
I'm coming around to the fact that it's not about trusting anybody.
Racial.
I have more sway in the Democratic Party. And one of the reasons why Republicans have been able to remain in power, despite the fact of how shitty they are, is because their voters will vote for them no matter what.
The way he does better if he splits us. There's division. And I think people need hope. I think, look, George, I've never been more optimistic about the prospects for this country than I am today, and I really mean that. I think the people are ready. They understand what's at stake, and it's not about Democrat or Republican. If I get elected,
Yes, we need to get money out of politics.
Democrat, but I'm going to be an American president.
And that is the reason why you feel that Bernie is trustworthy, because he doesn't take corporate donations. So the way he acts isn't like this slimy, thread the needle because I need to appeal to this constituent, this constituent, this constituent.
One more break.
Because the people that finance Bernie...
If you're an accredited investor...
Because the people that finance Bernie are you and I. So that's why it seems like he acts on our behalf. I figured this would be off at 8:30, 9:30 Eastern. Probably just going to come back and let Biden say goodbye. 18 days until the election. Now, even if, like, it's kind of 50-50. Like, will we know that Biden is the president on election night, or will it be a couple of nights a week out before we know that Biden is the president. That's kind of where we're at the moment. And it's like, if it's not the night of, that gives Trump time to throw court challenges and shit like that, and that's what sucks. And that's another reason why I've come to the notion of voting for Biden. Just in case Trump throws some court challenges. You know, if 10 million people voted against him, it's going to be a hell of a lot harder to convince a judge to rule in a way that overrules the will of the people. If only. I'm rooting for a Bernie RKO out of nowhere. I don't think it's going to happen. So am I going to have to watch this shopping show in order to get a dose of Leslie Jones now? I had even asked myself, like, why have I not seen her in the 2 episodes of SNL that have aired thus far? Apparently she's doing some game show on another network. It's always the most important vote. I'm tired of it being always the most important vote. That's one of the reasons why I wish that voting was mandatory. And I think we should pay people. You get a payment to go vote, but it's also mandatory. You get a fine if you don't. You like stuff like that. What do you call that? Well, I mean, Leslie Jones is always good, so I'm of course she's going to have some good quips and shit. Brain rot. That's what people call that kind of TV. Shit that you don't have to think about when you're watching it. See, that's why I don't watch much TV, is because all the stuff that I want to watch is stuff that you have to actually sit down and focus on. It's hard for me to focus. And that's another people's attention span. That's why streaming is getting big. People like having a stream on in the background. Well, there's money involved in voting right now. You get money out of the equation, but voting is mandatory in other countries, like in Australia, voting is mandatory. Nobody sees it as a problem. And also the fines are like diverted. It's like a $10 fine or $15 fine. It's something. It's fun. It's crazy. Oh shit.
Of your last debate. You're supposed to have another debate a week from tonight. Just 2 quick questions. Do you expect that debate to happen? Will you demand that President Trump take a test that day and let it be negative before you debate?
Yeah, by the way, before I came up here,
yes to both those.
I took another test. I've been taking every day, the deep test, the one they go in both. And because I wanted to be able, if I had not passed that test, I didn't want to come here and not, expose anybody. And I just think it's just decency to be able to determine whether or not you're clear. And it's not. I'm less concerned about me, but then the people, the guys at the cameras, the people working in the Secret Service guys you drive up with, all those people.
You should have to vote.
And so yes, I believe he will do that. Look, I'm going to abide by what the commission.
Well, we should make it so if you have to vote, then you have to make it easy. Then it should be a holiday.
It's supposed to happen, and he said he wouldn't do that.
Early voting as much as possible. Mail-in voting.
Didn't want to do that. I didn't set those rules. The commission set the rules. So whatever rules they set.
Yes.
And I'm confident that
it works fabulously in Australia.
I think they're going to not let happen what happened last time. They're going to demand that it's safe.
But you expect to be there?
Oh, I expect to be there.
Mr. Vice President, thank you for your time tonight. Thanks to all the questioners here. It was really terrific questions. I think you did a service to our democracy tonight. Thank you very much. I want to go back to my colleague David Muir in New York.
All right, George, thank you. So there you have it.
Was that a shot by George? I think you did a service to democracy. The other channel, I don't think that was too much of a service to democracy. Alright, I've been teasing it all evening. Are you guys ready for this one?
It was the red-eye flight from Las Vegas. Pretty much everyone on board was sleeping. One woman in the back was woken up in the most disturbing way.
I've never been more ready to come back home until the end.
Detroiter Alicia Beverly could not wait to get back, ironically, from Sin City.
It's just a girls' trip.
Ironically.
Did you guys have fun? Yeah, had fun.
Monday night, curled up in a back seat next to her sister on board a Delta flight. Alicia was asleep until
it started to get warm on this side of me.
In that sleepy haze, right at eye level, something unexpected.
Poor girl.
And I seen his private area out, so I screamed, and that woke everybody on the plane up. By the time I actually looked at him and I see him shaking himself up, I'm like, this man just peed on me.
Her scream getting the attention of an off-duty officer on board.
In the midst of me doing all that, I looked, it was like a puddle of pee in the seat.
Alicia says the officer rushed over, restraining the man, who turned out to be a well-known pastor from North Carolina. Sources tell us.
Now, I went searching. I cannot find who this man is. I even went to the Reddit boards because I figured if there's no news organization posting it, but it's a well-known pastor. Well, he is blaming it on, he's pulling a Roseanne and blaming it on Ambien. My problem with this is that I could not find the name of the pastor. Because after doing this story, you goddamn right I wanted to play video of the pastor and be like, this motherfucker pissed on a girl. I can totally see it. I've had friends, I've seen them on Ambien, they've done some crazy fucking shit. But if you're on an airplane, you have to take responsibility for the fact, and like you pissed on a girl. I feel so sorry for her. And because like at first I'm laughing about how funny it is that a stupid ass pastor pissed on somebody. They attempted to piss in the fridge on Ambien, or they were just fucking crazy? I know the kind of people you've been around. I can totally see being on Ambien, but on the flip side of that, like, dude, you shouldn't have. Well, there's a lot of parallels between Ambien and Xanax. Those two, they have some similar traits. But it's his responsibility to not take an Ambien when he's on a fucking plane. Especially in the middle of a pandemic.
The pastor had an apparent bad reaction to a sleep aid.
He didn't say anything the whole time he was standing there.
Just like you were a bathroom.
That's fucked up. Just like you were a bathroom.
Sat in those wet clothes for hours.
See, this is the part that sucks.
Detroit Metro, where the pastor was taken into custody. He hasn't been charged yet. The FBI handles incidents in the air. They'll make a decision on charges. Meanwhile, Alicia is filled with anxiety.
I left work yesterday because I couldn't stay, but I had to tell him why I needed to leave. Because
I want to hug her.
It was a lot. Like, my anxiety was really bad.
Yes.
Since then, I probably only got maybe like 4 hours of sleep.
She's grateful, though, for the officer who took charge.
I'm literally very thankful that he was on there and something was able to be done right away, and it wouldn't have been like my word against his. It was somebody on there to actually see.
We spoke with the pastor's camp by phone. They're choosing not to comment right now. As for Delta, they referred us to local police.
See, I'm upset that I don't know who the
Fox 2 News.
Pastor's camp is. That pisses me off.
Do those?
Leave me alone. Well, okay, yeah, I got another clip I'll play here. You can see Lindsey Graham and Dianne Feinstein there shaking hands as if Lindsey Graham is someone who you would want to be shaking hands with. He was there with Amy Coney Barrett, where like 13 people tested positive. He was around Tom Tillis, who tested positive, and he refused. He refused to take a COVID test before his debate with Jamie Harrison because he did not want to miss this hearing. I can't believe Dianne Feinstein, who is, that woman has to be, she's in her 70s. She might be in her 80s. I can't believe she touched him. And then also watch him like just rub all over his mask. I mean, you've contaminated it, dude. Uh-oh.
Thanks so much for watching Bloomberg Quick Take.
You're welcome for me watching. All right, that'll do it for me tonight. Go ahead. Light one up, tip one back. It's all right to have a little fun before you hit the sack. Justin Freakin. We'll see you tomorrow night on the Troll Patrol. Live.